Welcome to the Holiness Today podcast. Earlier this month, I had a conversation with Cheryl Crouch, newly elected Global Director of Nazarene Missions International. She has served as a missionary in Papua New Guinea and has served NMI at the local and district levels. Cheryl is a prolific writer and has authored over 35 books and countless curriculum projects for the Church of the Nazarene. Cheryl officially started her position on June 1st, and I was able to connect with her at the end of her first week. Please enjoy this conversation we had with her early thoughts on what her role will be like for NMI. I'm here with Cheryl Crouch, recently elected Nazarene Missions International Director, and we're recording this on Friday, June 6th, which is the end of her first week at work at the Global Ministry Center. So to get us started, how was your first week? What was your first week like?
It's been fantastic. People have been so warm and welcoming, and I love realizing that I'm part of a team. And so it's been great. Yeah, they've been very, very kind to me. Although I keep getting lost in the GMC. I'm
Yeah,
working on that. So
it's like it's a triangle. And so it takes you a bit because you orient yourself kind of with squares in buildings. So it's like, wait a
I
second, did I go down this hall?
kindness. I definitely feel disoriented. So I'll take any excuse that will help me feel better
No,
about the
it's
direction.
confusing.
Yeah.
I shouldn't say I still get confused, but there has been times where, especially after we've rearranged things, I'll get confused where it's like, where's Global Missions at? So, and you are going to be working with Global Missions, of course, but
Yes.
geographically, you've been moved over to that side of the building as well. So there's intentionality of bringing you in, sitting in this same corridor as Jim Ritchie and Marty Hoskins, and working directly with the missionaries, the missions team. So that's pretty neat.
Absolutely. Yes. It's great to be right here. I'm still friends with NDI and NYI. However, we meet in the hall and we meet virtually as well. So still friends with the local
You
church
haven't
folk.
thrown off the auxiliaries at all, so
I have
you're still
not.
friends.
I have not. So
Well, to get me up to speed, but also our listeners, what were you doing prior to taking this position? If you could just share a little bit about that.
yeah, I was not campaigning for a position, that's for sure. So basically my husband and I were living in Denton, Texas, which is my hometown. I was the department head and English teacher at a Christian school. My husband was IT director at the same school. And I also, was doing a lot of volunteer work with the Church of the Nazarene and writing with the Church of the Nazarene. So I think that side of my life is maybe why I ended up here now. But yeah, I was just enjoying life there and living near my family. And in fact, my brothers say that I was very much like Bilbo Baggins, very comfortable in my little hobbit hole.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, God came knocking and invited me on an unexpected adventure. So,
So when you say you were working, let me rewind that a little bit. Did you grow up in the Church of the Nazarene? Is that your background?
yes, my father, in fact, was a Nazarene pastor. So I'm a pastor's kid and grew up in the same church that actually I was attending up until a week ago. So
Oh, wow.
that's like my family. Yeah, he
Yeah.
pastored that church for 34 years, and then we all stayed in it after he retired. And yeah,
Wow. In Denton, Texas.
yes.
Wow. And so what got you, how did you get involved in missions then? What was your interest getting involved in NMI?
So I think at NYC, I felt a call to missions and responded to that, but didn't know for sure what that would mean or what that would look like. And then as a student at Southern Nazarene, I met Jeff. We fell in love and we started talking about what might that look like in missions. And interestingly, we both felt a call to spend about 2 years on the mission field. We thought that that would be a great thing to do if we could do that before we, bought a house, got careers, had a family.
Hmm.
That's kind of what God's call was for us. And so it actually ended up we graduated We were married, and couple years later, we were asked by Global Missions to go as missionaries to Papua New Guinea for a 2-year contract. So just really interesting. And while there, we took care of the missionary kids. They used to all go to a hostel. The Nazarene missionary kids went to a hostel while they attended boarding school. So we were their full-time mom and dad for 2 years, and was just unbelievably incredible experience. They're some of the coolest people I've ever met on the face of the planet. Uh, they were really not that much younger than us, which is terrifying when you realize. I think we were 24 years old and about half of them were 18. So anyway, it was a great 2 years. When that assignment ended and we came back to Denton, Texas. We felt called back because my dad, his church, it was kind of missing our age group. There were older adults, but there were not really any young adults and young families. And so we felt called to come back and try to help build that up. And then immediately I was invited to be the local missions president. And so that's where I got started with NMI as a local president. And then it was not long at all until I was asked to serve on the district council. And so then a few years later a lot of years later, became the district NMI president for West Texas. And so that's kind of how I got involved in NMI. I just loved that I could be here and still be involved in missions, and particularly in Nazarene missions. So NMI was a fantastic fit for me.
We'll be right back with the rest of this episode. But did you know you can receive credit for listening to Holiness Today podcasts? Holiness Today podcasts qualify for lifelong learning with the Church of the Nazarene. To register for lifelong learning, simply go to learning.nazarene.org. The Lifelong Learning Registry provides Nazarene ministers the opportunity to record and report their efforts to develop and maintain a pattern of lifelong learning. Every Nazarene minister is encouraged to engage in a variety of lifelong learning activities. The code for Holiness Today podcast will be listed in the show description. This code can be utilized for this episode and any previous episode you wish to listen to. Thank you for being a listener and sharing in the ministry of the Church of the Nazarene. Now back to the rest of your episode. Something Lola would talk about as well, but if you could share just a little bit about the importance of the auxiliaries in getting lay people involved in ministry. I mean, as you've just shared, that's been your story, but how do you see that coming from your experience as maybe a vision or something that you want to, not that they're not doing it, but continue to do that with NMI?
Yeah, I think it's a beautiful way to serve as a lay person. And it's important and it's necessary.
Mm-hmm.
I also think it's a beautiful way, as I said, to be involved in missions as a lay person, because you're raising support, you're raising prayer support, you're helping people to know that they're a part of something bigger, and all of that is a great job for a lay person to do. So yeah, I learned a lot of leadership, gained a lot of leadership experience through NMI and through being able to serve in those ways, for sure.
If you could share, what specific aspects of maybe Nazarene Missions International resonate with your personal calling and passion? You said you're a teacher, but how does those passions, vocations incorporate with Nazarene Missions International for you?
So I think, I'm an English teacher and I'm a writer and I love stories. And to me, one big important job that NMI has is sharing the story of how God is working through the Church of the Nazarene all around the world. And, there's a lot of stats and a lot of numbers, but to me, the story is what resonates. And so I became very passionate about sharing the story of what God is doing and researching to find out what he was doing, and then finding ways to share that in ways that were engaging, but also in sharing how different churches across my district were creatively engaging people in missions and nurturing that spirit of missions. Because sometimes hearing those stories help us to think, oh, I could do that in my church. That's a great way to do that. And so I kind of loved sharing both sides of that story, the story of global missions, but also the
Mhm.
story of NMI and how is NMI doing their job well. So to help support global missions. So
Yeah.
so I think the storytelling part is the big part for me.
Did you grow up listening or read? Well, I said listening, so I just showed my hand there. I listened, but did you grow up reading or listening to the missionary books?
All of
Local
them
church?
every year, all
Yeah.
the time. Yes. In fact, that's one story that I love to share. When I came back from Papua New Guinea, and the dear lady, her name's Janelle Brown. She was our NMI president for 30 years at my church. And when she said, okay, you're now going to be the president, and every week I would come and she would hand me boxes and boxes of these materials. She kept everything that she had ever had, I think, in all 30 years. And she just kept bringing me stuff. But this one Sunday, she just hands me a children's mission book. And I could tell it was really old. And the title was Come With Me to Papua New Guinea. And she said, open it. And I opened it, and there in the front, it said the directions: read this, sign it, return it to your missions education secretary. And
Mhm.
number one was my 10-year-old signature, Cheryl
Oh,
Chamberlain.
wow.
I had read that book as a 10-year-old, and now and then I had ended up going as a
Yeah.
missionary to Papua
Yeah.
New Guinea, and I am going to be honest. I didn't remember, like, oh, this is when I got the call when I read this book as a 10-year-old. But what was
That's really cool.
impactful, is that I grew up in this church that over and over made sure that I heard that God was moving through the Church of the Nazarene around the world. It was just always
Mhm.
a part of the DNA of the church, was just this joy and this celebration. We're part of something huge. Look what God's doing. We're a part of that. And so that impacted me. That got inside of me for sure.
Mhm.
So,
So it may be too early to speak to this, but have you kind of started casting some vision, storytelling things that you want to do in this role? Or, it's probably popping all around your head, but have you kind of put some stuff down on paper, written out some stuff and vision you got?
put some things down on paper multiple times, and just a few minutes ago, put a new idea down on paper. In fact, but I do not want to verbalize those ideas
Yeah,
yet,
that makes
because
sense.
I am not sure what is going to come to fruition. But I I do know that there's so much to celebrate, and we've got to make it easy for people to hear those stories. And so I'm very, very excited about the potential for that. Yeah. And how we can do that well.
Yeah. Help me just biographically. So once you got back from Papua New Guinea, you started teaching at that point in time. Is that so? Have you been a teacher?
No.
So
Uh,
yeah, okay, go ahead.
Yeah. No, we came back. I was a full-time mom and an author. So I was actually in Papua New Guinea when Bruce Newfer at the Foundry contacted me and said, "Hey, we have a story that took place in Papua New Guinea, and would you be interested in writing it?" And so that's kind of when I entered my writing portion of my life. And so for those years, I just wrote and raised children, and was very active in NMI, and did not start teaching actually until we wanted to put our fourth child in a private Christian school, and realized
Ah, okay.
that the writing, while fulfilling, is not always
Yeah,
necessarily incredibly
yeah,
lucrative. And so I added teaching to my yeah, I really never wanted to be a teacher, but it's because I have such high respect for I felt like you
yeah,
needed to be called to be a
yeah.
teacher. Um, and so I kind of came at it through the back door and discovered that I absolutely love it. Really, really, really love it. So that's going to be an adjustment. Although I feel like hopefully in the NMI role, I'm just going to pretend like some workshops are still an opportunity to
Still
teach. So
teaching. Yeah,
yeah,
for sure.
but in a different way.
probably hard to pick a favorite, but do you have a specific author that you were inspired by growing up, or who's your favorite author? I guess you could put it that way. You probably have lists.
Well, I love Jane Austen, and I know some people
Yep.
don't feel like she's super literary, but I just she in my opinion, she is stellar, and we have the same birthday. So
Ah,
I feel a kindred spirit thing happening there. Um I yeah, so many though that I am passionate about. So
what's your favorite? Do you have a favorite Jane Austen book?
Pride and Prejudice.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just really love it. Love to reread it. Love to watch the movies, all the
Yeah.
versions. I love all of
Yeah.
them. Yeah.
I have only read Sense and Sensibility, so that's the only.
I
Should probably read some more Jane Austen, but
okay, you
confession
really
time.
should.
Going in from writing into teaching, and now into this NMI role, you said that you're going to lean on to more of that the writing side of it. But is there a desire to kind of reinvigorate the missionary stories and the missionary books? Is that something that maybe you're going to push into a little bit?
So I just had a conversation with somebody today. I find it interesting. People either passionately love or really detest the idea of the missionary reading books. There's a very, I mean, so it's so funny because I've had so many people say, "You're bringing back the books, right? Are we going to get the books back?" And then I've had other people say, "You're not thinking of bringing back the books, are you?" Because people know that I was part of the books and that I love books. And so I will, I think that there will be some form of sharing longer narratives, of missions. And so it may not be a pack of 6 books every year that you pass around. It may be one really great book a year, or um, it may be. I'm not ready to commit after my first 4 days on the job, but
Yes.
but I mean, I love the books, obviously.
Yeah.
So we'll
But you're thinking through, so I guess I could just use this as a workshop moment where we can tease out thoughts. But you're working through ways in which to communicate the story
yes,
of Nazarene missions
right.
in, well, here, now I'll just speak about ourselves. Holiness Today. We recognized, obviously, we have the magazine readers, but we have to open up different ways of doing it. So that's where the podcast came along. But in
Right.
doing the podcast, I was thinking through this, not too long ago, and I said it's kind of an older style of median, just like the radio, where you actually listen,
Yeah.
and you're processing through that. And so, I guess putting you on the spot, have you guys thought about kind of doing stuff with that, with more audio type stuff with the stories? Is that an angle you guys have kind of explored a little bit?
Yes, we have brainstormed about doing something with you, maybe.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah. And even if it's something like, have a missionary read a chapter of a book that
Yeah.
they've already written and
Yeah, that
then
would be really
interview them
cool.
and talk. I mean, that might be fun. Um, Definitely whatever we do, I think needs to be available in multiple formats, you know? I'm gonna be honest, I'm one of those, I'm very old-fashioned, as you might guess, as an English teacher. I love to hold physical
Hold
books
the
and
book.
turn pages, but I have been wooed into the world of audio,
Yeah.
and partly because of, I mean, honestly, really, truly, like the Holiness Today podcast. I was not a big podcast person, and then I was in a meeting with Monty Perry, and she mentioned it, and I tried it, and I was like, "Oh my word! Now I understand why people like podcasts, because it's
Yeah.
great to be able to listen to all these different sermons from the past, and then
Yeah.
also feel like I'm getting to know people in the church through your
Right.
interviews." And so we have talked about podcasts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I know that Dr. Ritchie, he's hosted an episode for us, and I hope and I believe he's planning on to do some more for us. Uh, but just as you said, it kind of it doesn't take the teeth off of controversial things. But I remember talking to Lola, and the difficulty with NMI, and you're still in this difficulty, but is to figure out not only ways to communicate, but to make sure that when you communicate, you're not saying things you're not supposed to say. I know that's kind of an area of, and in some ways, uh, I feel like the conversation piece of the podcast allows you to kind of tease out things And then also with the editing of it afterward, if you need to edit things out in ways that is kind of more palatable, in ways that is less, I don't know if that makes sense. At least for us, we have found that to be a wonderful way to still talk about maybe tough issues, but to do it in such a
Yes.
way where it's not so, it's just different when you read it. You know what I'm saying? You
Right.
can't
Right.
hear the voice. You can't
Yes.
actually audibly hear the
Yes.
emotions behind that. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. I
yeah,
would agree.
yeah. Yeah,
Yep.
that would be neat. Yeah, one of the ideas that I've talked about with your team in the past that I think would be really cool. So I'm really putting you on the spot, but is to actually hear. Now you're going to be committed.
Actually, the what is your strategy
Yeah, yeah,
meeting?
yeah, yeah. That's exactly what it's for. But it's to hear the missionaries. It would be really cool to see that
Yes.
and hear that, as you said. And then the other thing too is, you know, getting audio versions. Because I don't know what the best way to do that is. It Audible? Is it But to get the audio versions, which they do exist, of the missionary tapes back up somewhere. I know the Foundry has them on their website, but to kind of platform that a little more would be pretty neat. So
Yeah,
exciting.
it would be a real blessing to be able to have that. Agreed.
So, funny question for you, but what was the most surprising thing you ran into, other than the confusion of the triangle at the GMC? But what was the most surprising thing you ran into at in your first week?
In my first week. Okay, I'm gonna have to think about that. Hmm. Well, the coffee is good. The like office coffee. I don't I I just get I'm kind of a little bit particular. I'm not terribly particular, but
Yeah,
I really like I grind my own coffee beans
yeah, I
every
do
morning,
too.
and so usually I carry my coffee with me, and
Yeah,
I don't usually like the coffee that other people offer, but the coffee is fantastic. Apparently it's from a local place.
yeah, I did.
So
It did.
so that surprised me in a happy way. Um, oh, well, and then also our office is in a bit of disarray because it was just moving. And uh, so because all of global mission was displaced, they decided to embrace it and call it Camp Global Mission. And so on my door was a title that said Counselor Cheryl Crouch. And then there were every row had like cabin names and numbers, and they were all different campers. And I'm just gonna be honest, I didn't know that I was walking. I knew that they were pretty fun, but I didn't know that it was this fun of a group. So there's a real sense of camaraderie, and
There
yet
is. Yeah, yeah,
this is
for
a
sure.
joyful, fun place to work, and I'm just so
It is.
thankful for that because I the place I left was fantastic, and so it was hard to leave, and so it's really great to find myself in the midst of just. I mean, people are working hard and they're excellent at what they do, but they're having a great time doing it. So
And have you been to Kansas City or the Kansas City area quite a bit, or is this?
I've come for like general board meetings
Yeah,
and stuff, but I have not been here a lot, and I think it's really pretty. I really
there's a
like
lot of
it.
pretty areas. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. So I think
yeah.
I'm going to love living here.
Yeah, and if I think I can share this because he's in the same office as me, so I feel like I can share this. But your husband Jeff will also be working at the Global Ministry Center, so that's kind of neat that you'll be able to work with your husband still. But
Yeah,
if he's moving with you,
that's a
yeah,
real source of joy for us.
yeah,
I know not everybody, you know, I mean, everybody loves their spouse, I assume, but
yeah,
not everybody
yeah,
like really loves to be together a lot. But
right,
we, because we worked at the same school, we love riding to and from
yeah,
work
yeah, for
together.
sure,
And yeah, it's just, and so we prayed and we asked a lot of people to pray really specifically that
yeah,
Jeff would be able, really to get a job where when necessary he could work remotely because I'm going to be traveling a lot with
yeah,
NMI,
yeah,
and and so God was so sweet and kind to answer that prayer. And so he'll be able to travel with me
wonderful,
and work remote. And so that's just a huge blessing.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, if things get tough, at least you're on different floors, if I remember correctly. So
True. Yeah. Once we walk through the doors, other than lunch, we've been meeting for lunch when we can, but yeah, he's definitely in his own completely other world
yeah,
down there
yeah,
full of numbers and things.
yeah,
So
that's fun.
yeah.
So, what do you think? Obviously, it's probably still early to tell, but as you've been preparing yourself and praying for this role, what do you think the biggest challenge you're going to face in this leadership role as you're looking at it?
Well, you've mentioned Lola, and I want to say I'm so thankful for Lola and for the groundwork, for what I'm stepping into. And I feel like that's a blessing that NMI is in a good place. So I'm thankful for the work that she's done and that her team's done. And I think, I don't know, challenge so much as really truly, this sounds cheesy, but really truly opportunity. I think the big opportunity that I face is because we have just come back under world global mission is just figuring out what that means, and obviously loads of collaboration, which is beautiful. And so how to do that really effectively, and how to work with all the different aspects of global missions, yeah, so that we can be even more effective in this new season.
Hmm.
I think uh hopefully, I mean, it's what every generation, I think, of the church has always said. How do we engage the next generation
Yeah. Yep.
is always a good challenge. And so trying to make those connections stronger with the next generation, um and strengthening, the connection from the with the local church. I'm just really passionate that if people step into a Nazarene church, no matter where it is, that they would quickly become aware this church is a part of something big
Yeah.
and
Yep.
amazing. And I think uh sometimes churches have a tendency to kind of isolate
Yep.
and function like an independent church. And I feel like there's such strength in being part of something bigger. So hopefully helping churches understand the beauty of belonging to a global church. So
Well, and my context might be different because I grew up in rural northern Michigan, but for me, the NMI, nothing against NDI and NYI, but the NMI officers in the NMI, the missionary night, that was the means by which that I understood we were a global church. I mean, that was kind of directly. So yeah, yeah. And again, it might be because I was pretty
right.
isolated out there, but yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Right, right. And and my church was small, and but I'll say, I mean, what you just said, I mean, you ask about challenges, there very, very few places still have a Sunday night or a Wednesday night or an
Yeah, that's true.
opportunity,
That's true.
to give that kind of devoted time to it. And so that is a huge challenge that we face of how do we connect a church that only meets together for 1 hour on a Sunday morning, And so, that's just a constant challenge too, to try to figure out new and creative ways to keep people engaged and to help them understand what they're a part of.
So I'm trying to remember now, but in the last few years, with that change of dynamic, has there been a lot of missionary Sunday mornings? I know I went to a church service recently that the missionary speaker was on Sunday morning, but has that become more of the kind of formal way to do it? Because again, for me, I guess I didn't even think about that, but it was Sunday night that we kind of did a missionary service. But
So it's that's another challenge, because some pastors say, maybe I only get my people come, twice a month. And so then if we give one Sunday to a missionary, so sometimes it's hard to get a missionary into a church on a Sunday morning because there aren't, there's just such limited time. Um, so yeah, just a lot of a lot of challenges to figure out how, but then if you say, okay, we'll give you a missionary, on a Sunday night or a Wednesday night, well, we don't meet then, and
yeah,
but I'm excited because that's a whole nother new thing is Diane Robbins just came on with me. The Monday is her first day, and her entire job is going to be deputation and helping figure out how are we going to connect our missionaries
the local church.
with our local churches,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
in today's environment, how do we best
yeah.
do that? So that's great news. So we've got some good things happening on that front.
What have you seen in different ways of communicating since COVID, as it relates to Zoom and things like this? What we're doing now, has that provided an opportunity to connect missionaries to the local church?
That's fantastic. In my local church, we just a few months ago had a Zoom on a Sunday morning uh, with Doug and Jennifer Mann. So they were in Eurasia and they were our Links missionaries, and they got on there. Their kids spoke to the congregation. I mean, that you talk about, people were fired up. They were so excited. They got to meet the whole family, and it cost nothing in travel. And so that was partly the man's being willing to be creative and make that happen, which I greatly appreciated. So you are right. That gives some really beautiful opportunities. And because it doesn't involve a lot of expense, then that also opens the opportunity to say, hey, can these missionaries have 5 minutes, to address the congregation? So, yeah, that's a very exciting. It takes just a little, some work ahead of time and
Yeah.
some planning, but it's so worth the effort.
And I imagine too, in areas that might have limited capabilities, you could even do
Right.
pre-recorded options too, where you send out
That's
a
a really great
meeting.
idea, because then
Yeah.
you don't have the awkward
Yeah.
the awkward frozen moments or whatever.
Buffering. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
No, you're right.
Yeah. No, I just find it fascinating the more and more we're doing things this way. I mean, you miss some things, of course. You miss the lunch afterward with the missionary and whatnot, but
That's true.
it's pretty dynamic to be able to do that and opens up channels. So
Yeah.
I have a personal question for you, personal professional question. So as a professional writer, here's the personal question. How do you structure time to write? What does that look like for you? And what will that look like for you in your new role?
Okay, that is one of my huge questions that I am asking myself right now, because here's how I like to write. I would sit in my mom's lazy boy that I inherited to heaven, and I have my little table beside me. And if I'm really serious about writing, I have Cheez-Its and M&Ms that are the mix that have, I don't know if you know this exists, but you can buy the package and it has peanut M&Ms, plain M&Ms, and peanut butter
I did not
M&Ms.
know that. I did not know that.
Oh,
I have to
it's
find
one of
that.
the happiest discoveries of my life.
Yeah.
And Diet Dr. Pepper. So if I'm very serious, I get and then I light a candle, and then I play classical music, and
Yeah.
hopefully the weather is great and I open the windows. So that's my ideal writing condition.
Yeah.
And so now I am looking around at this office and I'm going, I don't know how this is going to work out for me. But somebody today said that I might even be able to say I need a writing day and I'm going to have to do it from home, but I don't know.
Yeah.
So anyway, but that's how I like to write. And I really, really like to get away, like for a weekend, and just only write. Just really, really focus. So, but for now, really the kind of writing that's on my agenda right now is more like writing workshops and uh talks, so that's different
Yeah.
from big narrative writing. So maybe I can work it out. But yeah, I only let myself have those treats when I'm writing.
Yeah.
So I kind
Were
of
you able to move with your mom's chair? Are you able to have a setup at your place?
So this
Like,
is really sad. I decided to let the chair go
oh
before it
no.
got any worse looking than
Yeah.
it was not looking great. And so yeah, that was kind of a hard decision, but
Yeah.
I let it go. But the main thing is if I can get my feet up. I probably sound like a major diva person, and I'm really, but I just like to have my feet up and my laptop on my lap. I don't like to work at a desk. So
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm working on school right now, and it's like you got not in a superstitious way, but just like you got to have everything structured in a certain way. You got to have this book there that you can grab, and it's
yes, yes, yes.
your water and your
I've
coffee.
been asking about my physical environment and my snacks. You might have been asking about something much deeper than that, but
No, I was no. I think that's interrelated. I think that connects to it. So no, for me, that's probably the biggest struggle in my life is structuring that time to be creative. I find that very difficult.
yeah.
I'm
I keep
learning.
looking at my calendar and seeing meeting, 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 meeting.
Yeah,
Just going,
yeah,
oh, oh, oh.
yeah.
Yeah.
But no, that's good to have a writing day. And I've tried to figure out, is it better to have a writing day, or is it better to have small snippets of time throughout the day where I can write, but I don't know.
Yeah.
I haven't got a
What's
good
the
answer
key
yet.
for
So,
you? Okay.
well, I like to say that it's to write every day because I'll lose my train of thought on my project. But then when you think about all the accoutrements you need, all of the right environment, it becomes a little more difficult. So I don't know, a little bit of both, I guess, depends on. And then procrastination for me, I guess, is a motivator. So when I have a deadline, it's like, my writing gets better because it has to.
Yeah.
So
Yes. I'm into productive procrastination. My
yeah,
house is never cleaner than when I am up against a writing deadline.
you
I just clean like a wild
avoid
person.
you avoid everything. Well, that makes me feel a little bit better. So if you could just write without having to write for something, so just write pure creatively
Oh,
and not for work, what do you think you'd write about? Or what, if you can share with us, what maybe are you writing about? Do you have a creative project that you're working on right now that's unrelated to work?
well, I mean the creative project that I'm kind of currently in that kind of came to a halt with this move, and so I don't know if you know that I've been writing the vacation Bible schools for the church of the Nazarene.
I was wondering if you were. I was so okay. You are okay. Good.
So
Good.
so that has been a fun creative,
Yeah.
you know, writing the intro and the closing and the silliness, and I think I need to figure out what will be my creative writing outlet, because I love writing stories, but then as a writer, I'm sure I mean, part of it, if it's not a have to kind of a thing, then it's
Yeah.
really hard to find the time and the
Oh, for sure.
make the
Yeah.
effort to do it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I need to think through what's going to be the creative. I might go back to poetry. I haven't done poetry since a poetry class in college, and maybe something like that that's a little more manageable chunks. I
Yeah.
don't know.
Yeah, and I don't know about you, but do they ever pop, lines just pop into your mind and you're like, man, I need to write this down, and then you don't,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
don't recall it later. Yeah, you got to carry something with you in
turn
there.
into something.
Yeah,
So
no,
yeah.
yeah, I've had those moments. So you mentioned Jane Austen, but right now, are you working through any books of fiction? Any Jane Austen? Do you find it? But I find it important to be reading at least a work of fiction at any given time. I don't know. Harold Bloom or someone said that once, and I thought that was brilliant. But do you read through fiction
So
along with all
I
your nonfiction?
I do. And right now I'm actually reading Ivanhoe because I had never read it.
Okay. Walter
Uh
Scott, is that Walter Scott?
yes. Yeah,
I've never
and
read it
it's
either.
funny. I didn't
Yeah.
know it was funny.
Ah,
Like
yeah,
it's pretty it makes me laugh. So that's I like to have on my nightstand, like you're saying, something that's fiction, and
yeah,
usually I'm trying to add more and more nonfiction, especially now a lot of books about leadership.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
um and so yeah, but I do find that that's good for I feel like it's good for my brain and my soul to read a little bit right before I go to sleep. So
yeah. Yeah, one of the books that, and again, I haven't finished it, it's a long one, is that I was laughing at and I was surprised. It was supposed to be funny and it lived up to it was Don Quixote. Have you read Don Quixote at
I
all?
have not read it.
It's
Yeah.
long. I'm still working
Okay.
through that. Our Danny Hulka, our Spanish podcaster, and obviously I should have, so Sancho Panza is the
Right.
sidekick. And I until she was talking about something or translating something for me, I didn't realize Panza was stomach or belly. And I said, "Oh, that's funny." So it was like a double laugh.
So
It's like
there's humor that
so
you
it's
can't.
there's even funnier if you know Spanish, I think. So yeah, but
Right.
no.
Well, that's one thing that I mean, as a somebody whose degree is in English and somebody who taught English, I don't know why I'm surprised, but over and over again, when I pick up a classic and read it and love it, I'm surprised. And then I think, well, there's a reason it's a classic. That's
Yeah.
why it's a classic, because it's outstanding.
Yeah.
But sometimes I guess you get it in your mind, oh, that's a book I'm supposed to read, or that's a book I should read. And so you
Yeah.
you approach it like it's a school assignment and
School assignment, exactly.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
No, I recently I haven't read very much of them at all, but started working through Steinbeck and Hemingway, and reading through that because Steinbeck and Hemingway always for me were that's the high school class assignment, So it's like as
Right.
I've been working
Right.
through because I had read somewhere that Hemingway was the best short story writer, But as I've been reading through them, it's like they actually are really enjoyable and funny, and you get the sense of humor. But it like you said, it's me trying to tease that out of my mind that it's not a have to read.
Right.
It's a pleasure
And
to read.
it really does take, I mean, it takes intentionality. It's such a different, current books, are written on what, a fourth grade reading level,
Yeah.
sixth grade,
Yeah.
whatever. And so you really do have to intentionally engage your brain. And, but how good is that for your brain? It's
Yeah.
got to be good for your
Yeah.
brain to work through the hard vocabulary. And then once usually like a page in or so, you're like, okay, I'm good. I got this. I can read this. So,
Exactly. Yeah. No, I think it's in one. I don't remember which one it is. It's one of his short stories. Hemingway uh, says that Kansas City in the wintertime is a lot like Constantinople, I think is the terminology. And just in that one sentence, you're like, I have to think through all of what he's meaning there. But yeah, yeah. He had spent time in Kansas City for a little bit, so he has some of his short stories are connected to it. I think he worked for the Kansas City Star, if I remember
oh
correctly.
my
So
goodness. Okay. Well,
yeah,
I may
yeah,
have to
you have to check
get
him out.
onto
Yeah,
some
yeah.
Hemingway. Okay.
So sorry, that was a long digression. So going, but you mentioned leadership with nonfiction writing. Is there any book you'd recommend, or any book you're working through right now on nonfiction and leadership that kind of maybe change the way you think about things?
Well, you know what? I'm trying to remember the title. Um, my cousin, I have a cousin actually who has been, he's been head of school at all kinds of crazy schools. So in Hawaii and the school for boys in Hershey, Pennsylvania, and all these different places. And he wrote a book on leadership because now he's a consultant and he travels around. And so he had given me his book and I started looking through that. And it was one, sometimes when the person who wrote it, you're like, okay, yeah, I'll look at it or whatever. And it was so outstanding and so many things that I highlighted, and really helpful, but it's not going to help you or anyone else because I cannot remember the title at all.
We'll put it. Yes, send me an email. We'll put it in the show notes. We'll give you a
Okay.
recommendation for it. Yeah, yeah, that's funny. So in coming to Kansas City, what are you gonna? It sounds like so you grew up in Denton, Texas. You're
Yes.
from Texas. So what are you gonna miss the most about leaving Texas, or what do you think you'll?
My grandchildren.
Yeah,
Yeah. So that's the absolutely horrific part of this. That
yeah,
was the real surrender to God moment.
yeah.
My children, my grandchildren, I have one that was about 40 minutes away from me, and then one that's to the west about 3 hours, and one that's north about 3 hours. But I was right in the middle of I have
Uh,
two boys and two girls. I was in the middle of them, and every Thursday I kept my little 2-year-old grandson Tommy. He has a little baby sister on the way that's going to be born this summer. So that uh yeah, that's what I'm gonna miss the most. And then, my church, they're like family to me.
yeah,
Um, my community, my coworkers. I mean, I'm just
yeah,
telling you, like I loved everything. I
yeah,
loved everything about my life.
yeah,
And so
yeah,
really truly when they called and talked to me about this, I said, that's a beautiful honor, but no, thank you. I am not interested in leaving. And Jim Ritchie said, you should pray.
yeah. At least pray on it, huh?
No, no, I don't want to do that. And he
Yeah,
said, if God calls you, then it's like a mission call. And he said,
yeah,
I've left everything to come
yeah,
here and do this. And I can look every one of my missionaries in the eyes and tell them, I'm not asking you to do something I haven't been willing to do.
yeah,
And so I started praying and crying and praying and crying and praying and crying. And I've basically done that for about the last 6 months.
yeah,
But I thought that it was going to be like an Abraham and Isaac thing. And it was God saying, are you willing to give all this up? And I would say, I'm willing. And then they would say, thank you, Cheryl, but we've chosen Bob.
yeah,
And
yeah,
I would say, woo, I made it through that test, and so it was a tremendous shock to me when they said, we feel like you're the person that God has. And but my precious kids, I mean, when we talked to
Yeah.
them, they said, Mom, you were born to do this. This is what you were made to do.
Aw,
And so they have been unbelievably
very
gracious
supportive
and
of it.
kind, and yeah, they've been so sweet. And they're all coming July 4th. So
Ah,
uh,
that's fun.
they're coming to see us up here. So it's going to be
That's
okay. God's gonna take care of my family, and He's gonna help me somehow stay in good contact. And
yeah. I was just looking it up. It's what is it, about 7 hour drive?
yeah, which
Yeah.
is not bad at all, actually. So
Yeah.
we drove it as a practice run, and we are just like, oh, piece of cake, piece of cake. So we're gonna be we picked Olathe, so we're on the south side, and we're right on 30, so it's a straight shot.
Yeah.
So
So do you guys know what you're gonna do yet for the 4th of July? Have you looked up different stuff in Olathe?
well, I need to get on it. I need to get
Yeah.
on it. Right. Somebody invited me to a private fireworks on a lake on the
Ah,
5th of July. So that may be what we do.
yeah.
And then I mean, I guess we've got to go to the plaza. Everybody says the plaza is
Yeah.
super cool.
Yeah, it is
Um,
really neat.
so yeah, but yeah, you can share your
Yeah, I'll have to share all the fun things. So you're living in South Olathe? Is that where you're at, you said?
we're close to the Garmin building.
Yes. Okay. Yeah.
Okay. So
There's a ton of Gary Hartkey's probably already told you because he knows a lot of them, but there's a ton of walking and bike trails all through there. I don't know if you've discovered
that's
them
great.
yet,
Yeah.
but
Well, yes, there are so many trails up here. I feel like the people here must be significantly healthier than Texans because we just do not have very many
all
walking
the
or biking
trails.
trails compared
It
to this area.
Yeah, it surprised me when I ended up living in Lenexa. My wife and I would just go for a walk almost every day, and we'd find a new trail. It seemed like there was just so many trails all through there. So yeah, it's a
Looking
great
forward
place.
to that. Jeff and I love to walk, and so yeah, I'm excited about checking out
Yeah,
the trails.
that's good. So any well, let me ask you a different way. What's your favorite restaurant in Denton, Texas? Is there any specific local restaurant that you would recommend to people traveling? What is that? North Dallas? Is that what I'm looking at right
So
there?
it's
Is it
just
north of
north of
Dallas?
Dallas.
Yeah.
Yes. I will throw out two. They're both burger places. One is LSA, and that stands for Lone Star Attitude. And that is on the Denton Square. Our square is very cool in Denton, Texas. So if you go to Denton, you should go to the square. We have the most beautiful courthouse, maybe in the United States. And
Wow.
then the square around it, like it's like a Hallmark movie. I mean,
Yeah.
families come and have picnics, and there's always an open air concert going on, and it's a very super cool vibe. Um, and so LSA is on the square, and it's got fantastic burgers. And then the others is now it's called Frosties, but it's really Mr. Frosties, as I grew up with. And it has been there for I don't know, 75 years or something. And it's just a tiny, tiny little place that they have not updated the decor or the bathrooms ever in the entire time they've existed. But they make fabulous hamburgers, and they used to have uh their whole thing was it was a root beer float in a frosty mug. But they said the health department won't let them serve
Oh no.
in a frosted mug anymore. So I don't understand that. But at any rate, but it's still really good root beer floats. So those are two. If you like burgers, you should definitely check those out.
Yeah. Well, if the health department's coming after you, it's got to be good. It's
Well,
got to be.
that maybe it might have more to do with the restaurant than the mugs. I don't know. I mean the restroom.
That's hilarious. So have you found any places in Kansas City? Have you tried out any of the Kansas City barbecue yet or anything since you've been there?
Well, we went to Jack Stack, and I know people have apparently really strong opinions, but I am already a huge fan of Jack Stack. Like that was
Yeah.
unbelievable. It was a beautiful experience. Everything about it. I was very, very happy. Very, very happy. The side dishes, good gravy. Wow, wow,
Yeah.
wow, wow, wow. So good, so good. But I hear that there are lots more, and so I'm up for it.
There's
I'm
quite a
ready
few.
to
Are you predisposed to Texas barbecue though? Does Denton have a
Well,
lot of Texas
yes,
barbecue?
I do. I am very serious about brisket. I love Yeah, but Kansas City barbecue is working out
Yeah.
really, really just fine for me.
Yeah.
It's good stuff. Yeah.
Kansas City does a lot of brisket as well, I think. So I
Yes.
think
Yeah. Yeah.
that's the burnt ends as well. I
Oh
think is a
yeah.
Kansas
That's
City
a
thing.
happy
So all
thing. Yeah, I'm a big fan of brisket.
right, I'm gonna throw some very important personal questions at you. So get to know you questions. All right, favorite movie?
Uh okay, this is again super classic, but I think It's a Wonderful Life with Jimmy
Yeah.
Stewart. I watch it every single Christmas and I cry still every single time. I can't not cry. I
It's
just
a
think
great
it's
movie.
absolutely beautiful. I love it.
It's a must watch. I've
Yeah.
actually met someone who doesn't like that movie. Isn't that doesn't seem like there's something wrong
Sorry
with
for
them?
them.
Yeah,
Oh
I don't know.
yes, I feel like that would
Something
be a problem.
pray for them. Yeah, for sure.
I think a more modern one that I just really like is The Secret Life of Walter Mitty.
Yeah, that's a
Uh
good one. That is a good
it
one.
was just I thought it was really
It's a fun
beautifully
one.
done and
Yeah.
it was very uplifting and
Yep.
yeah, and it wasn't it was just really clean and nice
Yeah.
and it ends with like the couple holding hands and you're like,
Yeah.
"Oh, see, which
Yeah.
is a Jane Austen-y kind of thing."
Yeah.
So,
Well, Ben Stiller, again, I haven't like fact checked this, so I could be fact check on this, but really for the last seems like 15 years of his life only makes PG movies and they're very clean. It seems like they're really clean kind of movies.
I
So
really like him too. He just feels like a real person,
yeah. Yeah.
for
Yeah.
instance.
So
So,
I'm probably going to get fact checked after this, and it's going to be like, did you forget the rated R movie he made? With blah 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 blah. I'll say since Tropic Thunder, I think he's made pretty clean movies now. So
I mean,
caveat.
I haven't
No,
heard
but
that, but it sounds
yeah,
questionable.
yeah, exactly. I don't even know if that was him, but yeah. Anyway, yeah, those are good movies. But so if you could travel to anywhere in the world right now, well, maybe not right now, maybe this weekend when your weekend starts, you might not want to go right now. But if you could just travel, snap of the finger, anywhere in the world, where would you want to travel to?
To Prince Edward Island because I'm also obsessed with Anne of Green Gables. Love, love, love Lucy Maud Montgomery and Anne of Green Gables, and that's on my bucket list.
Yeah,
And it's, you would think like Canada shouldn't be that far away, but it's really far.
yeah, to get up
And
there.
so there have
Yeah,
been several times when we've tried to figure out how to get there, and thus
yeah.
far have
So
not.
I interviewed Dr. Sundberg last week, so I got to keep my episode straight. So her episode's coming out this Thursday, and she just visited Prince Edward Island. So she took her granddaughters there. So when I had interviewed her, she had not yet traveled there yet. See, gets confusing when I pre-record. She had not yet traveled there yet, but she has since traveled there by the time our episode will come out.
Okay, so
yeah.
I'm gonna have to get some tips from her. Well,
Yeah.
and apparently we have a lot of good Nazarenes up there, so I'm really hopeful that by
Yeah, she did. She did some sort of Nazarene event. So yeah, just try and get an NMI event up there going, and
yeah. Hopefully
that's your
she'll hear
excuse.
this and be like, "Let's go."
Let's
So
invite her
yeah, I
up.
would
Yeah,
love,
yeah.
love, love to go there.
So if you could sit down and have a cup of coffee with anyone in history, we'll do it two ways. Anyone in history, including scripture, and then anyone in history, not including scripture. So who would your two people be? So you got to pick someone in the Bible
Okay,
as well.
someone in the Bible. Um, well, I think Paul would be absolutely fascinating, but also terrifying.
Yeah.
Because I feel like he would probably have some things to say to me that
Yeah,
I might not be ready.
He would have some strong opinions, I think.
He would have
about
some
something.
opinions, but
Yeah.
if I could just keep my mouth shut and take it, I feel like that would probably be really, really fantastic to.
Yeah.
And then outside of scripture, oh, good glory.
Or let me ask it another way. You can have a cup of coffee with them, and you can answer this both ways. If you could witness something historically, go to a certain event and witness it, what would it be?
Okay.
Kind of a time travel question.
Okay, so when I first started teaching, I taught fifth grade world history. And we used a curriculum called Story of the World, which I loved because it told history through story. And the story of like Istanbul, Constantinople.
Yeah.
So I don't know if this is true, but it was in this history book and I taught it. So I hope it's true. That that city, the people who lived there had a saying that like we cannot be overtaken like as long as the sun shines. Like we will never be like we are so strong or whatever. And then there was an eclipse that just happened to be at the exact time
Wow.
as the
Yeah.
invading army, and they were just like, "Ah, it's all over." And that's when it switched hands. So I don't know.
Yeah.
No, I have not. It has been a lot of years since I've looked at any dates or anything particular in that, but I just thought that was
That is
a really
fascinating.
cool thing, and that would be. I think that would be pretty cool to see.
Oh yeah.
So that was extremely random. So
No, that would be interesting. Well, and to see it at that point in time too, when it was,
yeah,
the pinnacle of Christendom at that point in time, falling and all that. Yeah.
yeah.
Fascinating. All right, here's a good would you rather. See how you answer this one. Take this one.
Okay.
Would you rather fight one horse-sized duck or 100 duck-sized horses?
Okay. I think I'm gonna go with 100 duck-sized horses because horses are huge.
Yeah, that would be a scary
So
duck. He'd
my
probably eat you at
youngest
that.
daughter has gotten involved in equestrian stuff, and I had never really I hadn't had a lot of opportunity to be in the presence of horses. And then now, I mean,
Yeah.
good gravy. Horses are huge. If horses wanted to be mean,
Yeah.
they could do so much damage. And so I'm envisioning a duck. I don't know though that a duck would be terribly mean, but a horse-sized
Yeah.
goose would be.
A goose would be. I feel like ducks, in my opinion, are kind of like the golden retriever of birds. They just seem just kind of so happy-go-lucky.
Scared that it's a duck, but the size, I think, yeah, I'm pretty short, so I think I'd rather take on a lot of little things,
A
but
lot of little horses. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
All right. Would you rather staying on the animal theme? Would you rather be able to talk to animals or be able to speak every human language fluently?
every human language fluently
Yeah,
would be
that's kind of
so
valuable.
so incredibly handy right now in this job. It would be huge. Like we would save a lot of money on interpreters and translation,
Yeah.
and meetings would be a lot easier. I feel like going forward. Yeah, oh, that was an easy one. Thank you for
Yeah.
that one.
So I'll make it a little more difficult for you then. If you could talk to an animal fluently, what animal would that be?
Dogs.
Dogs. Do you own a dog?
Yeah. I did. I had a Pomeranian, and then growing up, I always had dogs. I definitely so we most recently had a cat, and here's the deal. I don't know if you feel like this as a writer. I always felt a lot of pressure to like cats and hot tea, and I like dogs and coffee. And so, but I did have a cat, and I made it work. But in my deepest heart of hearts, I'm a dog person.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Would you rather be able to fly, but only as fast as you can walk, or be able to teleport, but only to places you can see?
Whew. I think fly as fast as I can walk because then you could, like see what you're flying past. And that seems like that'd be pretty fun. And also, I think there's just enough space above the cubicles here at the GMC. I'm just looking at them that if I could fly any faster than that, it'd be dangerous and terrifying. So that'd be my vote.
So if you had that ability though, would you just float next to people instead of walking? Would you just hover next to them? Like awkwardly?
That would be very exciting. That would be
That's what
very
I would
fun.
do. That's what I would do. Well, Cheryl, thank you for this time. In the closing question, and I'm sure you have a lot we can be praying for, but what are you looking forward to, or what are you wanting our listeners to pray for you for, and what are some of the things that maybe you're looking forward to in the next few coming months? I won't say years. That's a little too far out. That's a lot of writing for the next few years. A lot of things to jot down.
I think uh if people would pray that uh for wisdom. I mean, I'm new to this obviously, and so I have a lot to learn. So that I would have a learning and listening mentality, and that people would feel like part of a team. that all the NMI volunteers everywhere on the globe would feel like I'm a part of this team and I'm valued and I have an important role to play and I have contributions to make. Um, so that's just really important to me, that it's not that I'm, I'm the bottom of the triangle. It's an upside down, organization. So I just want to serve well. So prayers for that. Um, Prayers that we would be able to engage our churches at just more and more at bigger and bigger levels. Specifically, that people would give to World Evangelism Fund, because we've got so much interest now. People want to go as missionaries, and so I want to be able to send them. And so prayers that people would give. And then I think that does encompass, in the future, that those things would be happening.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
just that God would be pleased as we work together as part of this team and part of global missions. And that that the church would be blessed, but that the kingdom would grow and that people would come to know Christ because of what we're doing here.
Well, thank you for sharing this time. Appreciate that. I was excited to be able to get you at the end of your first week. So I hope the next following weeks will be good. Of course, the timing on this, we'll have to figure out, when this is released. You'll be a couple weeks into it at that point in time. But thank you so much.
I so appreciate you making the time for this. I really do. I love listening to the podcast. So
thank you.
Having it's kind of a big moment for me to be actually on it. In fact, I'm just you can edit this out, but I had a nightmare about this interview. I dreamed that you asked me, so tell me how you got here. And I instead told you a 15-minute long story about finding a glass pot on Facebook Marketplace and going to get, and that at the end of all my thing, you said, well, that's not really what I was looking for, Cheryl. So anyway, I'm kind of glad this is behind me, but I feel honored to be on it.
It was a lot of fun. I considered starting out with the duck question first. I didn't know if that would be a good entrance point, so something lighthearted, but I saved that one to the end. Thank you for listening to the Holiness Today podcast. If you enjoyed this production and wish to hear more, visit holinesstoday.org/podcast or find us on Spotify, Apple, and Google Podcasts.